Cold War, 1947 to 1991. Cold War happened between the two major powers, US and USSR, which is present Russia. The world was divided into two blocks, the Western Bloc and the Eastern Bloc. The Western Bloc was dominated by the countries like Finland, Western Germany, France, Italy, and of course US. Soviet Union was dominated by countries like East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Yugoslavia, and Poland. The Cold War is happened to be begun by the Truman Doctrine that was done by President of US Harry Truman in 12th of March 1947. Truman Doctrine was all about that if any country attacks other countries' democracy, then the first former country shall be the enemy of America. So basically, directly or indirectly, it was targeting Russia. If Russia, being a communist country, tried to influence other democratic countries or diplomacy of the other country, then America shall attack it. So this is considered the beginning of Cold War. It ended on 26th of December 1991 with disintegration of the USSR. The Cold War can be broadly divided into some following phases based upon the intensity and the work done in that period. The first is 1946 to 53, that is the start of the Cold War. This happened with the Berlin blockade. Now, Berlin blockade was as such as shown here. It was like the US army was entrapped with the USSR's army. USSR's army tried to encapsulate the US army, making them uh, come to a smaller place, as a result of which they were prohibited from exiting this place. Now the US government has to interfere, and they have to airlift the water and other amenities to the people over here. Over an year later, the USSR had to remove the blockage because now they were frustrated and they knew that there is no end to this. Second is the Iron Curtain. Iron Curtain happened to be this division that got created over the period of time, where the countries got divided between the Western and the Eastern Bloc. This happened. Next is NATO. NATO's full form is North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that happened on 4th of April 1949 for all Western Bloc countries. Over here, as we know, US, and in between US and Europe, we have Atlantic Ocean. We have Atlantic Ocean. This is the north side of which, and over here we have the southern side. Mostly the countries of the Eastern domination of the Western Bloc are the North countries. As a result of which, we can say that these countries have one thing in common, which is the North Atlantic Ocean. So they made an organization naming North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This organization had its main aim that the countries of NATO, if are attacked or if their diplomacy is harmed, all countries shall come together and save that democracy from getting harmed. Next was the revolution in China. Now, this played a very prominent role in the Cold War because China was a very huge population country. It got transmitted into a communist state. Russia and China, these were the two main populations of the world. The two got converted into communist states. US was having a little population, and the other Western countries, Western allies had a smaller population. So they were fearing that their domination does not get hampered. Next event is the Korean War that happened in 1951 to 53. So Korea was the Japanese colony. Japanese got defeated in the World War II, as a result of which this Korea as the colony was divided, and it got divided into South Korea and North Korea. South Korea and North Korea had difference of opinion. Their thoughts were different. So we can see that South Korea was a capitalist thinking state and North Korea was a communist thinking state, which is very evident that if it is a capital thinking state, US will support it. Communist, so USSR will support it. So now this was a proxy war, we can say, that happened. A proxy war that happened. Second stage is the heightened tension. Heightened tension means over here the tensions were increased. This was a very prominent phase because now things were really going bad for the two countries. First is the Warsaw Pact. Warsaw Pact was in retaliation to NATO. It was similar to NATO but for the countries of the Eastern Bloc. Hungarian Revolution. Hungarian Revolution happened in 1956. People revolted against Russia influence on the government of Hungary. 12 days later, USSR tanks and troops crushed the revolution because they did not wanted that Hungary goes into the Western Bloc. So they kind of suppressed it. People were really frustrated now. They wanted to get away from it, but they were not allowed to do that. Cuban Missile. When you see the map from here, if US is this area, over here is Cuba, somewhat. Over here is Cuba, which is really very close to US. It's very close to US. What the USSR did, it installed Cuba became a communist state. And being a communist state, it was actively supported by USSR. Being supported by USSR established its missiles and nuclear power here, over here. US got threatened. Obviously, it is so close to US that if one missile reaches US, the entire land of US can be destroyed. So it got scared, but eventually nothing happened. It was a truce moment. Nothing happened, but still the tensions were very much prominent. Vietnam crisis. Now Vietnam crisis is somewhat similar to the Korean crisis because Vietnam also got divided in north and south. The only difference is that the Korea was a Japanese colony and over here it was a French colony which was later overtaken by Japan. North Korea was a communist state and South Korea was a capitalist state. Again, the similar situation, exactly the similar situation which happened in Korea. But in Korea, we had no result. Over here, we had a result. In Vietnam united turned communist because USSR won. So even today, Vietnam is a communist state. Even today, Vietnam and US cannot go on the same page because they still have difference of opinion. Third phase is 1969 to 79. This is de-acceleration in the conflict. After such a heightened tension, there came a period of peace. US dentate was signed with China. Now, dentate is an improvement in relation between the two or more countries. This was a peace period, where many peace treaties were signed, many things were done in order to increase the peace situation that has to happen. World peace and security was promoted in this period. We had SALT 1 and 2 treaty that was being signed. SALT 1 and 2 is Strategy Arms Limited Treaty. So what is this? This is about, as the name suggests, arms limitation. The both blocs decided that they are going to control their arms because they realize that it's worthless to fight about something which none of them can win. They knew both of them are really powerful. None of them can win. It is only going to cause damage. Space corporations were incorporated. Increase in the trade was done. So it was a very peaceful moment. Next is the fourth phase, that is the new Cold War era. Happened in 79 to 85. The first is the Afghanistan crisis. It began with Afghanistan crisis. Communist coalition toppled centrist government. The communist government toppled, which means that they tried to overpower it and they tried to remove it. US helped Afghanistan oppose this communist government. USSR sent the army to oppose the US. Proxy war started. 9 years. USSR under Brezhnev withdrew. It means that over here was Afghanistan. Afghanistan is very close to Russia. So the Russian domination over here influence is there. They tried to influence and wanted it to become a communist state. And as we have seen in the Truman Doctrine, they said that if any influence is done on the diplomacy of a country, America is going to support it. So America supported it. USSR did not like it. USSR also interfered with its army. They had a proxy war happening. Proxy war, why? Because they were not directly involved in it. They were just fighting for promoting their own cause. 9 years तक ये war चली and USSR under Brezhnev withdrew. He withdrew because he realized that there is no reason for the war. The war one or the other day will happen to destroy only. There is no solution because both are very powerful dominating countries. The US Strategy Defense Initiative Star War nuclear satellites for preparedness and awareness of the future attack. This initiative was done that if any nuclear weapon is being launched or if nuclear weapon is prepared for the US will, through its satellites in the space, through the stars in the space, will get to know about that initiative, that nuclear. Olympic boycott was done in 1980 by the US and in 84 by USSR as the retaliation of the boycott that was done by US. So Olympics was also involved because of the frustration and anger they had. The US Navy fleet exercised arms race and new missiles. So over here, new developments were made in the field of missile. It is so contrary to the previous period when they were talking about the peace and all, but now it is about the new Cold War era when they wanted to increase their nuclear weapon. The last phase happens to be 1985 to 89. This was the last phase, the end. It happened with Geneva Summit and Washington Summit. These two summits was only about reducing the armaments, nuclear weapons, and the realization of international peace and security. The importance of it is really high. Treaties were signed again for the same purpose, and the fall of the Berlin Wall and the US disintegration, which is the final thing that happened in the Cold War. Now, what are the factors for the Cold War? Why Cold War actually happened? Cold War's का सबसे बड़ा reason was the difference of opinion. US was supporting the capitalist, democracy and diplomacy thought. But on the other hand, USSR is supporting communist. Now, communist, what is communist? Communist is, we have read so much, now we have to really go through the terms. Communist means that there is a dictatorship. There is only one party rule. Only one party will rule over the period of time. There will be no elections. There will be no government people interaction. On the other hand, America was full-fledged and very vigilant towards the fact that people need to be involved in the government, in the administration of the country. That is the reason why they were supporting the diplomacy and democracy. So that is the one point which is very important. So America also feared the fact that both of the countries feared ki for America they feared that the communists do not spread in many countries, and Russia feared that democracy does not spread in the entire country, in the entire world. Anti-communist propaganda, public opinion in US. So US had this thing. The US people were against the communist thing. So there was a in US there was this atmosphere of anti-communist. So they not only the government but the people were also vigilant enough to realize that yes, communist is not good and their diplomacy and democracy is good. Decolonization, emergence of new states, or we can say third world. This interaction, the expansion is concerned only with the third world, because already the world got divided into two parts. One is communist, one is capitalist. One is communist and one is diplomacy wala, democracy wala, diplomacy and democracy wala. So the third world countries which are not a part of any, they had to get involved with any of the two. Okay, so this happened after decolonization, when more countries got liberated, independent from the rules of the masters. Proxy wars were the biggest reason. Proxy wars, we can see Cold War is all about proxy wars. There was no actual interaction between the US or the USSR. Next is the consequences. What happened? What were the consequences of Cold War? Obviously, the first is a disintegration of the USSR. USSR got disintegrated. Now we don't have USSR. We have Russia and other countries. So we don't have USSR. That's the one thing. Elimination of rivalry. Now communist, there is no rivalry that it happened. No rivalry between the difference of opinion or difference of choices. Next is, it got stabilized. The world after the Cold War, the world got stabilized. International peace and security got recognized. Non-alignment movement, we know that the countries which refused to be a part of the either of the parts were in the non-alignment movement. Balance of terror replaced with balance of power. That there was a terror because anybody can be attacked anytime, but now what situation we have balance of power, where there are 4-5 countries who are in the dominating power, but they don't try to suppress the other countries, and there is a balance of power. So this is all about the Cold War era.